Call to order the New Kent County Board of Supervisors, May 10th, 2021 meeting to order. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for being here tonight. Before we start the meeting tonight, I have some sad news to report to the community. Dr. Gail Harding, who has been a school board member for almost 2 decades, probably the longest service public, was the longest serving public servant in New Kent between both boards, passed away Mother's Day morning after a very short illness with a very nasty disease. So I know I can speak for the board, who was done a lot to us, to the community. She did a lot of great things. You knew where she stood on all things. Sometimes we might not have agreed all the time, but we were both, I think we were all honest and open with her, and she fought for what she believed in. She was a professor at William and Mary, and she gave tirelessly of herself to the whole community of New Kent County, and she's going to be irreplaceable. So on behalf of the board, our thoughts and prayers go out to her family. And with that, I'm going to ask Reverend Hathaway to lead us in the invocation of the pledge before we start tonight's meeting.
I had an opportunity to talk to Peyton Gail's daughter today. Gail and I were family, not by blood, flesh and blood, but simply by choice. And it has just been an amazing friendship. She's going to be sorely missed. She really poured her heart into our community. And it's up to us now to take that mantle and run the rest of the race. Would you bow me in prayer? Our Father and our God, you know how heavy our hearts are. And yet we know your grace and your mercy. God, we thank you for the precious gift of Gail Harding. Thank you for how she gave herself to our community, in particular, helping to develop generations. We're the better for that, God. And so tonight we pray that you would cover her family, comfort and sustain her community. God, we pray especially for the students that she loved and the administration that she committed herself to. May we all know that you are a God that never fails, and that beyond this life, there is eternal life. We thank you for that. In the name of your Son, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Hathaway.
Thank you.
Ms. Watkins, please call the roll.
Mr. Evelyn,
Here.
Mr. Tiller,
Here.
Ms. Page,
Here.
Mr. Steers,
Here.
and Mr. Lockwood.
Here.
All right, again, welcome tonight. Welcome to everybody watching at home. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. And I am going to ask that we take out item 2B, approval of easements for the extension of water and sewer services south on Route 106. It has been withdrawn and will be rescheduled.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to make a comment that in my file, I did not have a treasurer's report for March.
Yeah, there's one.
There is.
Yeah, under Department budget transfers. Right before citizens commentary. Wow. Does anybody else have it?
I don't know.
The report is a very short
Yeah.
report, but if you look down in the discussion section of the agenda item request, The treasurer states the balance ending March 31st, 2021. So it's $68,799,612.15.
You want me to help you, Mr. Spears? I don't mind.
No, but thank you, Ms. Page, I appreciate your help.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger.
Also, on the supplemental appropriations, I see that I spoke with Ms. Page about this today, but we're getting almost $1 million from the Central Virginia Transportation Authority, and that's funds that are going to be used to upgrade secondary roads or all roads in Newton County.
Actually, that money can be used for all roads in Kent County. Right now, with our focus being on the budget, next month, I want to bring to you a policy for the use of CBTA funding. And not only just a policy, but a list of projects so that we can start to prioritize and start moving forward with road projects.
And the other comment I want to make about that, and I made the comment in a CBTA meeting the other day, and that is that the funding for this is to help with some of our roadways here in New Kent. However, it does not replace, or that funding is for projects and not projects that are supposed to be maintained on a regular basis. So those things that are supposed to be done, grass cutting, shoulders of the road, ditch digging, all this kind of stuff. It is for specific projects that we hopefully have our road bureaus to come in and prioritize the needs, and that is for new roads, or even the possibility of some of the roads to help get those roads off of our secondary 6-year plan as well.
So, Mr. Adler, you're proposing that we're going to have a meeting kind of prior, on that in June?
Yes, once we get past the budget, which hopefully we will at the end of May, I'd like for us to kind of shift focus to CBTA.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Chairman.
Sure.
I move to approve the consent agenda with the changes that you made, and to be made part of the record.
Exclusion of 2B.
To be, right, okay.
Any discussion? Ms. Watkins, poll the members.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page?
I have to recuse from the March 12th minutes because I wasn't there,
Okay.
but I for the
You
other
want me
ones.
to pull that and vote on it separately?
Yes, so we'll go ahead and pull the March 12th.
I wasn't at the budget.
So let's go back and Mr. Tiller, can you pull out, make another motion to pull out the March 12th meeting
Minutes.
minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a change to that, to pull out the minutes from the March 12th meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Tiller. Ms. Watkins, poll the members.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
All right, now we're going to need a motion to approve.
Minutes from
March
March 11th.
12th.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the remainder of the minutes of the March 12th meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Tiller. Ms. Watkins, poll the members.
Ms. Page?
Here.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. All right. Next is the citizens' comment period. Anyone something, bring up something? No one signed up? I'll close the citizens' comment period. We can't start public hearings till 7 o'clock. So. Wait. Yeah. It's gonna beat out here. It's been so long since we've seen you, Mr. Wynn. So let's do the rest of the administrative report. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Walter Wynn, VDOT. Be kind of like a two-part introduction of, we'll get up there and we'll say a few things about traffic studies, but this past month we had 85 work orders we received. We completed 96, had 8 call outs this month after hours. Probably heard about the large amount of work we're doing on Farmers Drive, additional work and that sort of thing. Talked with Joe Terry this morning. They got about 3 more days of work out there to complete that. The 2 pipes they have to replace in that corridor, which will make drainage a lot better. I know they've cleaned ditches, they've hydro seeded everything out there so far. And hopefully it'll be successful, you know, in the end and everything. We're planning on doing a primary loan starting later this week, first part of next week. And get that done before Memorial Weekend. I got one other thing about some projects coming up that I want to let you know about. There is a smart scale project that's going to go to AD in June of 21. And what it is basically the shoulder widening on 155. And that's going from 249 to Kent Parkway. Kent Field, goes past Kent.
Okay.
It goes into other entrance to the golf course and everything. It goes to AD in June. I don't know how much work will be done before the end of this year, but some work will probably be done. You've probably seen some surveying going on out there. So just want to let you know that. Latex modified resurfacing. They've done some patching. They'll be starting that up in the next month or so. The big item is the paving on Route 60. I went to a pre-con last week. Alan Myers won the project, and they're slated to start May 23rd. And I forwarded Mr. Hathaway the information on the areas that will be paved. So, and hopefully, well, not hopefully, next year the plan is to pave from Towing to 249. We still have a couple of places on 60 that Joe's got to finish in that corridor. I think it's 3 more spots, but I think he's done a pretty good job so far.
A couple of them are still a little rough, but
Yeah.
it's a big improvement. I don't hear the trailers, trucks when they run over them at my house. So that was a huge improvement. Thank you.
With that, Phil, you come on up here.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Mr. Hathaway. Just going to give you a quick update on some of the studies. I know this one's been there for a long time, Route 60, it's a corridor study. It's one that spurred from a signal warning analysis that we completed a couple, 16 months ago. Determined that a signal was warranted, but instead of implementing that, we wanted to look at the entire corridor of Route 60 through that section to make sure that we meet certain spacing criteria. And then if we put a signal up, it goes to the right location. So that one's been, it's going to be tasked out to our on-call through traffic engineering. It's a much bigger, much more robust study than what we do at our level, at the district level. Hopefully what comes out of this will be potential projects, implementations that we can do at the residency if it's, within maintenance. Otherwise, there might be opportunities to apply for smart scale potential projects, whether you want to choose to put CVTA, if it involves a secondary road with a secondary intersection, then maybe you can put secondary road there. So same thing with Route 30, 33 through Elkhorn. We're going to do a corridor study. I think a lot of you know that we recommended what you call a two-way left turn lane, also known as a twiddle. What it does is it takes 4 lanes and it reduces it to 2 lanes, and it creates a center lane that is two-way left turn. What that does is it does make the road a little bit more congested, but it influences speed in a positive manner by reducing it. So that was a recommendation on our part. I know there wasn't a lot of support, so what we're going to do is we're going to do a bigger corridor study. That's still an option, but I'm going to ask that team to look at some other opportunities that we can maybe make some improvements out there. What I'll say is it would be a really good idea if maybe there's 1 or even 2 members from New Kent that can participate as like a stakeholder and be a part of those meetings to really make sure that, the county's perspective is seen and understood. So, yeah, I know y'all like that. That'll be a really good step in the right direction, I think. Got a pending speed study that came in for Route 610. We've done one in the past, but it was funny. I looked at traffic volumes for that one, and it was weird. It more than doubled in the last couple of years through 2020. And what we found was that actually in 2020, traffic volumes decreased by like 25 to 50%. So to see that road had actually doubled gives me a little concern that it might even be more than that in the coming year. So we'll do a new speed study for Route 610, and then Route 30, Old Stage. This is one that's been going for a while. We got a message today that the placement of the signs have been approved, ordered, they're in stock. We're going to call in the missed utility ticket, I believe today. Hampton Roads is going to actually install the signs throughout James City County and New Kent, but they're going to give us a heads up, and we're going to install some message boards to put some notice out. And then the last thing I'll mention is Mr. Bailey and I are going to meet on Friday out there on Route 30. We're going to take a look at some different, I think Mr. Lockwood's going to be there too. We're going to take a look at some different possible pull-off locations to help law enforcement shoot radar and really enforce the new 50-mile-per-hour speed limit out there. So that's about all I have. Go ahead. We'll take any questions, comments.
I'm just curious, do you have a little bit of a timeline for the actual signs going up? I know you're kind of waiting on them.
Yeah, so typically a missed utility ticket if we put it in, it gets marked within 72 hours. So my assumption is that we will put out message boards probably at the end of this week. That's my guess. And that they will install them either at the end of next week or the beginning of the following week.
My question, Mr. Chairman, on the speed study on Passport Road.
Yeah.
So we did a request to reduce it. And so you're allowing the amount of increased traffic to, what does that mean?
So we redo speed studies. We look at a couple of things. We look at crash history. We look at when the last time one was done, and then we look at traffic volumes. So a lot of the times I'll look at traffic volume from a speed study that was done in 2014 to now. And if the volume stayed the same, there hasn't been any crashes, like increase in crashes, then a lot of the times it's not a good idea. I won't recommend doing another speed study because we likely are going to get the exact same data with the same result. So that's where that comes from. We talked a little bit about this in this safety committee, transportation safety committee. On that note, with this one, I pulled crash history from, it was 2014 and there was about 300 vehicles per day. I pulled crash or volume for 2020, which, like I said, we had seen reduce across the board by up to 50%. And yet it had gone from 300 vehicles per day to over 700 to 800 vehicles per day. So to me, there's a possibility that this coming year, when traffic actually comes back to levels out, it might be over 1,000 vehicles per day. So
Let's reopen a park from it, like.
there's being a park being open on 610.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
might be a big reason why there's been an increase.
Not yet.
Okay, so has there been other development out there?
That's probably the reason of the increase in traffic, because, people are going back and forth to the park.
Okay.
Construction out there.
So I'll ask you your opinion. We're doing this on 611 and a couple other roads. We're actually delaying new speed study requests based on pending development.
Mhm.
So on 611, our building a school and a recreational facility. So we're proposing to delay doing any kind of new speed study on 611 until after that development is complete. So I'll ask you the same question for this one.
Mhm.
Would you prefer if I hold
Absolutely.
on?
That's your district.
Absolutely.
Okay. So when is that park supposed to be completed?
It's a soft opening in July.
Soft opening in July. So I can put this until fall,
Okay.
right?
You okay
No,
with that?
before the fall. Not the end of the fall.
What's that saying?
Not the end of the fall.
Early fall.
Early fall, yeah.
Well, you don't want to do it in the wintertime because nobody will be out there. on park.
They were starting to on that one.
That's totally fair.
Okay.
I just wanted, Marshall, Gwen, I just wanted to express my appreciation for the work that they're doing out there on Farmers Drive. I've had a lot of people, in spite of the road closures and all that stuff, I haven't heard any complaints about that. People have been really pleased to see the work getting done out there, and if you would please pass on my appreciation to Joe and his team for getting it done out there, so appreciate it.
I think the next big project is gonna be shoulders on 33. We will tackle that when we have that crew. 'Cause what we did, we brought other people from other areas to help us get that done. And I know there was some traffic delays, but that's the only way you can really do it. You can't work at night out there. We had message boards up, stating expect heavy delays, and people still came in there. And some of them waited 20, 30 minutes before they could get through, so, yeah.
Thank you very much for getting it done, because they're definitely doing a good job, and people have expressed that, so thank you.
Anything else on maintenance, that you don't want to bring up?
Anybody else in this field?
I don't get too considered maintenance, but, I constantly get calls about Rocket Hawk Road. And I know there was some mention that somewhere down the road soon that, to finish that plan, I mean, there was about a mile paved a couple years ago, and, they're still requesting that out, and that's not in my district, but that's coming from the Transportation Safety Commission. And, this has been going on for how many years? 5 years now, and it seems that it keeps getting pushed back while other roads are being repaved in the county, and not sure why that's not being taken care of. And also at the transportation meeting, I think you were there via Zoom. No,
I
you
was
were there in person. I remember you in person, but I thought you were on Zoom. But anyway, I mentioned that on 618 South going from New Kent into Charles City, that there is like a foot added on either side of the road on 618.
That was the project.
Make what?
That was the project. In Charles City.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But if and when you guys get to Rocket Hot Road, could that possibly be added a foot on either side for all these motorhomes and campers coming through?
That'd be a trench widening. That would have to be a project. It's not something.
It wouldn't be able to make it on the resurfacing schedule, so it would be a project. So that was something that came up at the Transportation Safety Committee, was maybe using secondary 6-year plan money. There is money program that is just in a balance entry account right now. It's unprogrammed. So Rockahawk could be a potential candidate for a trench widening project, and with that, we would also resurface it. But with the actual resurfacing schedule work that we do, we just cover up what's there. So it's not really widening the road.
But I mean, would it make sense if you're gonna be out there, you're gonna be repaving, go ahead and widen it while you're there?
So it's different funding is what it is.
Well, there's also another issue with that is if we do widen it, you'll see what you see on, I think it's 611 again, is the shoulder edges start to break off. If we widen, if the road is, let's say, 20 feet wide, and just with the resurfacing schedule, pave it 22 feet wide, an extra foot on either side, there's no base built underneath that. So that's where the trench widening project comes in. It's actually excavation, it's putting down new stone, creating a new road bed. And that's why we can't do it with maintenance. And it has to be a developed project.
I can tell you, that one's gonna be a tough one to trench widen.
Okay.
There's 9 inches of concrete under that pavement. That was old RAP 360 years ago. So you gotta find that concrete pavement. I don't know how far you have to trench down
Right.
to widen it. But I was involved in a couple of pipe projects out there, and when I got to the concrete, I said, oh my God. We had to break all of it out.
So
to the
when
pipe.
is it on the schedule to have the rest of it repaved?
We put it on next year's schedule.
Which starts July 1.
It'll be July 1, it'll be June of 22. It'll be June of 22. We put it on next year's schedule, but the big emphasis going forward right now is paving roads with 3,500 vehicles or more. Secondary pavement. It'll eventually get to roadways with 3,500 or below. We just did traffic counts up there, 700 vehicles a day.
On Rocco?
Yes, 700 vehicles a day. It's 2 different counts. One was like 780 and the other was like 695, something like that. So, it's tough. I can understand.
Well, yeah, and I appreciate what you're saying. If you find that you can move that project up sooner, since your budget starts July 1, we appreciate it.
That's not gonna happen.
You know,
We just went through an ice storm in February. We're projected to be $32 million in the hole, Richmond district wide, for all the debris cleanup. They go clean up over 500,000 cubic yards of debris across their district. It's not a cheap venture at all.
Would that include Interstate 85?
Yes, 95, 85,
Why on 85?
64, and weekend, yeah, no.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Just take it.
So,
No, the 2 things that I saw on the list of which one that was on South Woodland and Longview and on, shoot, I got the other road, but it was one with the debris cleanup in the storm.
Okay.
Because when I said something about it, I rode by there a couple days later and it was gone. I was like, either they got it before I commented or either they got it the day after.
Right.
So, but I appreciate y'all getting that. I'm done.
good afternoon, good evening, Mr. Wynn. Good seeing you, and thank you for all the work that you all are doing around the county. I do have a couple of things, and one of them is on Route 249, and it's around the 12,700, something like that. And another one is 1330. When you're traveling westbound, between the two, it's and you're in the lane, on this side of the lane, it's crumbling. So it's like it's a dip, and it's 3 places around, I think it's 13300, and then the other one is at 127, either 20 or 40. And I don't know what it's the travel, it's a tire path. I don't know what you call it, it's a tire path. But when you're driving on the passenger side, there's 3 places where it's just crumbling.
On the shoulder.
It's not on the,
It's like the road.
it's between the travel, the traffic, the tire lane and the shoulder.
Okay.
But it's actually in the road.
Okay.
and the same up around, 127-2040. And at
Sure you got the right addresses?
I don't know, but I'm gonna stop and get it for you, and I'm gonna send you an email. But, and at that house, I asked, I guess maybe 3 or 4 years ago, that culvert pipe has been smashed down, so therefore, the water runs over it and under. And so, rocks and everything are coming down in the road. So I'll send you the correct address on both of those. And then another question is about Oliver Church Road. We talked sometime, and I brought it up at the last meeting. We had Mr. Spears go out and he measured the road. And I tried to measure the road. Anyway, we're gonna do the striping on the road.
We've sent a task order to our pavement management folks. Don't exactly know when they will get to it, but they have.
Okay,
It's about 6 miles worth of
okay,
pavement work.
okay,
So once I get the schedule,
mhm,
I'll send it over to you.
okay. So I'll just watch for that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much for all you do, sir.
I noticed,
Good.
I noticed this weekend, if you go down 618, there's like little white dots in the center, like every, I don't know.
You might have already gone up there and marked
It
it.
looks like they've already marked.
He might have already marked it.
You're good,
I
Mr.
noticed that
Wayne. I
yesterday.
really thank you now.
If he's marked it, it doesn't take long to paint.
Thank you. Okay.
Anything else?
This page, I was just, sitting there talking about this, the traffic study for the park. It might be late summer, early fall, probably consider late fall on Pine Fork Road, because I think there'll be more activity during that time.
We said early fall, didn't we?
Was it late summer, early fall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So that's that, early fall. Thank y'all for being here.
It's good seeing you.
Yeah, we're happy to be here.
Thank you. See you Friday.
Like I said earlier, our public hearings cannot start till 7:00, so we'll move on down the agenda to the elected officials report. Mr. Spears?
The only thing I would like to say is, the last couple of years, our high school seniors have been deprived of so much. Going to school 1 day a week, or not at all, maybe 2 days a week. And this year they missed out on their homecoming and their, last 2 years. And so a group of us got together and we met with Randy Caldwell from Rocket Hawk Campground, and he is loaning us the Rocket Hawk Dome. And we're planning on having a junior senior prom for our seniors and juniors on June the 5th. And it would not be a school sponsored event, so we're looking for volunteers and donations to help fund the event. But we've got a committee together. Everybody's excited. The kids are elated. And I think it's a great thing that we're doing for our kids here in the team.
Thank you, Mr. Spears. Ms. Phillips?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Ms. Lockwood?
I'm good.
Why you call me that?
It's gonna take a while.
Okay, so since we were talking about traffic, I'm just asking everybody to be mindful that, here in beautiful New Kent County, as the Commonwealth is opening up, people are going to, the water, the rivers around, and I-64 is already wreaking havoc. And so we asked a special, safety precautions on Route 249 and on Route 60 as traffic comes off of I-64. I know that last year we talked about the increased number of accidents that we had on 249. So we just asked everybody to remember that your car is not a phone booth. And so we ask that you just focus your attention on other, yourself and others that are on 249 and 60 and on the roadways. Also would just like to give the staff just a huge thank you for They're moving back and forth, and we're halfway done with the HVAC repair system. But just the transitions and operating the county from other buildings and other work sites. So we thank you for that and for the putting the plan together, Mr. Hathaway, as always working in excellence. My heart is just so heavy. Again, at another board meeting, I have to say, not in my district, but in New Kent County, we have a businessman, an avid tournament fisher, a coach at New Kent, around New Kent and at New Kent. Jerry Britt, the brother of John Britt, passed over the weekend, and so to him and his family, we sent out and expressed our condolences to them and prayers of peace and comfort as they go through this time of bereavement. And we just thank all of our citizens that are going to be coming to the farmers market. It is opening on Saturday. I'm so excited. And can't you tell? The farmers market is opening at our regional farmers market on Saturday morning. At what time is that, right?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. And so Mr. Hathaway will be there. I'll be there. And Krista and our staff, and we'll have vendors and food and the community coming together at a gathering place. And so, and on that note, I thank you, Mrs. Sears, for your efforts, but we thank our graduates of New Kent High School this year for their endeavors and all that helped them to accomplish their goals, and looking forward to a graduation this year. So, and with that, and to all of our former high school students that have graduated from college this year, Juliana Jones is one of them that graduated from James Madison University, my swimming coach. And so we just thank them and thank you for the opportunity to speak, Mr. Chairman.
May I just add one thing?
On Sunday at 4 o'clock at Gautier Vineyards, I'm going to be conducting a town hall meeting in the 5th district for anybody that would like to come out and join us, discuss what's going on in the 5th district and the county in general. And since it's been a strange year of not being able to see people in person, it would be nice to get together and meet some folks. And I don't know if we're allowed to shake hands or not, but you're welcome. Doesn't matter what district you're from if you want to come out. So that's Sunday at Gautier Vineyards at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. I'll have a few things. I would like to thank public safety. I think last weekend we had a half-court marathon. What has this been? 4 years? 5 years? 5 years. I really appreciate you guys working with New Kent Winery and sports backers. The first year my telephone rang off the hook. I was getting like 15 calls an hour. I'm proud to say I had 0. So I think it was very well organized and very well put together. So thanks, Sheriff and Fire Chief and everybody with public safety. This has been a tough week, definitely, with the last couple of weeks in New Kent. Besides Mr. Britt and Dr. Hardy, we lost another New Kent graduate who's 21 years old. That was very prominent in the county, a lot of friends. Devin Samuels. So I want to extend my prayers and condolences to the Samuels family, Lomans, Kellys, and the Williams family during this tough time. And just let them know that God is with them. And please keep that family in the prayers through this time. So we are New Kent strong. Been through tough times, and I know the community will pull together as we always do. So I just want everyone to keep them in their thoughts and prayers. Appointments. District two,
No, sir.
District three,
Yes, sir.
District four and five have none. Appointment not delegated by districts. Anyone have any?
No, sir.
Mr. Hathaway, staff reports?
I just have one item. In front of you, an article was passed out today, a great article, that our Economic Development Department worked with the Business View magazine on. Business View magazine is a publication that goes out electronically to over 840,000 executive readers across North America. I've read it, it's a great article, I think it really showcases the best we have to offer.
Was this what was there a kind of a sit down with Matt on this and
Yes.
on the radio, somebody was telling about that. Is this the same interview?
That's the same, yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
I'm surprised the feedback about that.
Yes, it turned out very well.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Any board members have any other business? If not, we're gonna take a 15-minute recess or so, plus, and, we're resuming at 7 o'clock.
We gotta do the public hearing.
Call Newton County Board Supervisor meeting back to order. It's 7 o'clock now, so we will start our public hearing. Mr. Hathaway will give us a brief overview of the public hearing tonight. Budget, thank you, Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. The first public hearing item you have before you is Resolution R-09-21. This is the FY 22-27 secondary 6-year plan. The secondary 6-year plan is a process where staff works closely with VDOT to develop projects with funding from what we call the funding from fees that are collected from telecommunication companies, leasing right-of-way from VDOT. FY 22, we are projected to receive approximately $67,422. We are proposing that funding be utilized for drainage and road improvements on Olivet Church Road, Route 618. The project area starts at Route 60 and goes northward approximately 1 mile. If anybody's familiar with that area, you know that that's an area that has constant flooding, and it doesn't take much rain to cause water to go over the roadway. This is a project, because of the limited amount of annual funds that we receive, it does take 2 or 3 years sometime to set aside enough funding to move forward with the project. We are at a point now, because we did set aside funding last year as well, where we can move forward with the improvements on Route 618. Total project cost is $116,479. And with the proposed secondary 6-year plan for FY 22 that you're being asked to take action on, that will give us the needed funds. This time, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Tillman, I got one. Do we think that Kent Road may ever get back on that 6-year plan? It was on there for years and that project kept getting bumped up. And then all of a sudden it was off the table and they spent the money on dispatch road.
The problem with Kent Road was the cost. I believe that was a
$1 million project.
I think it was several $1 million actually, because it involved raising the roadway, and it was some significant work that was proposed. And with only getting $60,000 a year, it will take us a very long time to accumulate enough money to move forward. I don't know if secondary 6-year road plan will be the answer for Henpeck, but we definitely have opportunities through some other VDOT projects and leveraging our Central Virginia Transportation Authority, possibly some revenue sharing projects where we would leverage part of our money to get access to a larger pot of VDOT money. And I definitely think that as we talk CVTA, that's one of the projects we have to consider.
Can I ask Mr. Wynn a question? I mean, if you go down Henpeck Road, once you start going downhill, coming from the 249 end, I mean, there are places where the edge of the road has come in a foot and crumbled near some of those ditch lines. I mean, it's steady.
The 665?
Yes.
Yes.
That's when we will replace the pipe in that bottom.
Y'all going to, or you never did though, right?
We will do that.
Oh,
That's one of the projects we were doing there. We'll take care of.
yeah, because they marked it several months ago and then like nothing was ever done.
No, we had to get a hydraulic study to see what size pipe we could put in
Okay.
there. And that's been done, so that project is forthcoming. It'll be done this summer sometime or before.
Okay. Well, will they come back and check some of the shoulders of the road further up? Because I mean, it really is, if you meet a car,
It's a
and you're
cut
not careful.
slope, cut real tall cut slopes up there.
Yeah.
So, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, thank you.
You?
That's all. I'm sorry.
No.
I think it was a golden opportunity.
Anybody else have any questions? If none, I'll open the public hearing. Since comment, anyone signed up? No one signed up, I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion on the 6-year? I know I say that every year, I know Mr. Wentz probably tired of that, but. There's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Page?
I move to adopt R-09-21, approving the proposed FY 2022 through 2027 secondary 6-year plan.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Watkins, poll the members.
Mr. Steers? Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. So just a public notice, we have 6 more public hearings on the budget, and we're gonna go through all of those. Mr. Hathaway's gonna give a presentation, on all of those, and then I'll open each public hearing and give the public opportunity to speak, on what the public hearing they want to speak on, just for time constraints, because I'll link back to the budget, so. Any board members have any issues with that?
No, sir.
Sounds good.
Ms. Hadley?
Thank you.
I did. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm going to touch on all 6 public hearings. The first one is proposed tax levies. For FY 22, we are proposing to keep the real estate rate at 79 cents, tangible personal property at 375, and airplanes, machinery and tools at 75 cents. So we're proposing no change to our existing tax rate. Although, for the Bottoms Bridge, Sewer, and Water District at Valorem, we are proposing, and we've advertised, a 2-cent decrease in the ad valorem tax rate, which will bring that rate from 13 cents to 11 cents. The FY 22 budget that you have before you totals $80,711,106. And again, it maintains our current tax rate of 79 cents per 100. And not that we compete with adjacent localities, but I will say that that is the 3rd lowest tax rate in the region out of the 9 localities that make up the Richmond region. We are anticipating an increase of general revenue funds totaling $3,695,824. Even with COVID, we have seen a lot of growth in New Kent County, which shows, and I believe it's an indicator that we have a very healthy economy here. That is a significant amount of new revenue that's being projected for FY 22. The breakdown for that revenue is shown. The majority of that coming from the real estate taxes. We're anticipating an additional $1.3 million in real estate. Personal property tax, we've seen another very healthy increase in personal property taxes, and we're starting to trend the last 3 or 4 years. We've seen these big significant gains in personal property taxes. We're projecting $655,832. We're buying vehicles, RVs, trucks, which is definitely a good thing. We are showing an increase in revenue from our mills tax. What this comes from is a proposed additional 2% on the current 4% mills tax rate. So therefore, we're proposing that the mills tax will be increased to 6%. In the General Assembly, during the last session of the General Assembly, they adopted legislation that gave
localities, similar taxing authorities to cities and towns, meaning that we can now tax we have an increased limit on our meals tax. We also can impose cigarette tax and other taxes that we're not proposing this evening, but we are looking at increasing the meals tax. Now, the General Assembly capped counties at 6%, cities and towns have no cap. But with the additional 2%, that will generate $591,880. This too is a revenue that we've seen a lot of growth from over the years, and we anticipate that that 591 generated from the 2% will continue to grow and become larger. I am proposing that this money, the revenues received from this, be restricted and set aside for future capital projects. The next slide will show capital projects that's in our 5-year capital improvement program. Projects that we're already looking at right now to fund, and we've identified a need. The problem is we need to identify a revenue source to fund them. I've heard comments from the public that we have no immediate projects planned. Why do we need to raise the meals tax next year? We just borrowed in 2020, we borrowed $22 million to move forward with the elementary school. We started planning for it in 2014. And because we did that, we were at a position to not increase or impact our real estate tax. And that's our goal, is to hold our real estate tax as harmless as we can. Mills tax is a revenue that is not paid for by all county residents.
So it's 22, this is the public knows, we borrowed $22 million, but what was the cost of the school?
It was a $35 million project.
So that money's been set, I think,
Yes.
anybody watching that needs to be said over the time, we set that money aside.
Yes.
Was that the Rosie's money too?
We did utilize $4 million of Rosie's bill.
Could I, Mr. Chairman, could I add, what percentage of that money was meal tax money?
I don't understand the question.
The money that we helped fund the school, the new elementary school, $35 million school,
Mhm.
how much of that money was from the meals tax?
Well, we set aside real estate tax revenue to fund the elementary school. And the way we did that is during assessment years when we had growth in our real estate rate. And every single year, actually, we've seen growth by new houses coming into the county. So instead of spending that additional revenue, we set it aside. We didn't spend it.
That's
And we
real
saved
estate,
it.
but my
Yes.
question is how much of the meals tax money?
We did not set aside the real estate.
That was my question.
Yes. But we have an opportunity now to set aside real estate tax, a tax that we receive revenue from not just New Kent County residents, but residents throughout the entire region, as real estate tax is just from New Kent County residents. So
Thank you.
it's an attempt not to solely burden New Kent County residents. Sales and use tax, we've seen an increase in sales tax, which is a good indicator that our businesses are thriving. We know this has been a difficult year, and I'm not trying to understate that. But we are seeing gains and additional incomes in business taxes. And then the others, public service, our existing mills tax, recordation tax, which is another good indicator of development in the county. People are closing and selling property, and we get taxes from recording those deeds. Again, this list shows a total of an additional $3,695,824. Going back to the mills tax, because I have received a question of what is this going to fund? These projects right here are in our current capital improvements program. They're in out years, but these are projects that we're looking at. And we have $140 million worth of projects that we're already looking at and planning for and have identified as a need. A new middle school, that's in our CIP. Those middle schools right now are coming in at $50 million. a new county/school administration building. We have some capacity issues as far as staffing and office space, and not just the county side, but the school as well. We projected a new facility would cost $40 million. Currently in our CIP, we have 4 fire stations in our current CIP. The replacement of Fire Station 2, the replacement of Fire Station 4, which is really an inadequate facility that we're making do and making work. But definitely that is not a long-term solution for us. Fire Station 6 is in Bottoms Bridge. That's our growth area. And we've identified, based on where we want to be as response times, which our goal is to get to anywhere within 6.5 minutes. We believe that another station is needed in Bottoms Bridge, which will be Fire Station 6. Another need that we've identified is the need for a fire station in this complex, this courthouse area. We have a couple thousand students in our school facilities every day, and response times right now are about 8.5 minutes. Unfortunately, because of this location, you're on the edge of 2 fire station service areas, Station 1 and Station 3, with about an 8 or 8.5 minute response time. We want to cut that down and definitely protect our children. Elementary school renovations. I've had conversations with the schools about the need to renovate our 2 existing elementary schools as we build a 3rd new elementary school. We want to ensure that everybody has a similar facility and the best up-to-date. We all know that there's a second phase of Pine Fork Park, which involves the construction of a field house, tennis courts, and lighting. We estimate that at $6 million. Historic School, which is the original high school facility, we've done architectural preliminary plans for the renovation of that facility as a community and event center and meeting space for the public to use. And we projected that cost is about $4.5 million. And then we have another project that I think is really needed. Unfortunately, due to available funding, it's a project that has got kicked down the road many years, and it's probably been on our CIP ever since I've been county administrator, but that's the construction of a new animal shelter. We've done some preliminary architectural work for that and project that cost to be $4.5 million as well. So we are looking at $140 million of needed capital projects. At a previous meeting, we had a great presentation from Davenport and Associates, our financial consultants, who said that financially we're very strong, but we are nearing the limits of our borrowing capacities. The way to increase the limits of your borrowing capacities is to increase your sources of revenue, which goes into the recommendation of increasing the mills tax. New FY22 expenditures that are being proposed. We have about $1.7 million of personnel actions, which I've been over. I won't spend a lot of time, but there is a slide on what's being proposed there. I wanted to touch on one thing that I think is in here. Excuse my eyesight. Contingency, reserve for contingency. I just want to bring home the point that currently in your reserve for contingency line item, you have $688,440. By our own financial policies, we're only required to have $300,000 in our reserve for contingency items when we adopt the budget. And I state that because I know you've talked to various departments that have expressed some additional requests. You do have some flexibility within that budget, and we put that in the reserve for contingency line item. We have approximately $388,440. And I know there's some departments that you're working with that potentially that funding could go to. The personnel actions are listed here. One highlight that I'd like to make is we are proposing a 4% salary increase for all county staff. We're proposing all county staff minus public safety officials. For public safety staff, we're proposing an additional $5,500 for each public safety staff. You know, as it gets harder and harder to fill positions in the county, a lot of our neighbors are becoming more competitive. And if we want to continue to fill these slots, we need to be just as competitive. Therefore, we're recommending a little additional funding for public safety workers. And the same goes with the 4% as well. Localities surrounding us are all ranging in the 3.5 to 4% increase this year. And a lot of that is just because of the labor market and how tough it is to get staff. We're also proposing a few position upgrades and promotions, which are included in here as well. Some of the salary increases, such as constitutional officers and registrar, that is state mandated. We don't have a choice on that. But the good thing about that is we are getting some state funds to cover not all of it, but some of those increases as well. Employee compensation and benefits, I've touched on public safety and cost of living for staff. Health insurance rate, we did see a 3.5% increase from our health insurance provider, which is unfortunate and surprising to us because we've had one of our best years ever as far as claims. But I think just due to what's going on with COVID and our health insurance saw the need to increase by 3.5%. I am proposing that the county absorb that cost, so our employees see no additional increase in their health insurance benefits. VRS entire retirement rate, there's no change there. Healthcare credit, no change there. Life insurance, no change. Our VML auto and liability, we're still waiting on our premiums from Versa, our insurance company. We have budgeted a $20,000 increase just in case, but we're hoping that we won't have to use that $20,000. Capital projects, we've been over capital projects several times, so I won't go over those, but this is a list of the big projects that are being proposed for FY22, totaling $4.3 million. Capital projects funding. Our total CIP for FY22 is $4,379,130. 2.3 million of that actually comes from our capital improvements fund. $522,350 comes from proffers that we're currently receiving and will receive next year. And the thing I'm proud about is 1.5 million comes from state and federal grants. I encourage my department heads to go after these grant opportunities, and they do a great job with that. Public utility fund. We're proposing a 1% reduction in water and sewer rates. And I know this sounds small, but to me, I'm very proud of it because I feel that we're finally turning the corner with our utility rates and our system growth. Because just about every year for some time, I've come to you with 6% increases, 8% increases, 4% increases. Last year, we were able to reduce it by 1%. This year, we were able to do another 1%. And I see that reduction trend continuing in out years too. A lot of it is just system growth. We're getting more and more users. We're seeing a lot of growth right now with new users coming onto our system. So I'm anticipating this trend continuing for the downward slope. No increases in our connection and availability fees. Our bottom grid service district, as I mentioned earlier, a 2-cent decrease. Yes,
I thought we talked about a 5-cent decrease in that.
we can. We advertise too. And you can go down, you just can't increase it. And that's something that, I think we need to talk about. I do think that we've seen enough growth in this system that we can accommodate up to a 5% increase. But this was the advertised, and we anticipated that there would be some movement in that number. Total public utility budget is $8.1 million, an increase from $5.8 million the previous year. The reason for that increase, which is significant, is capital projects. We have one pretty large capital project that we're working on, and that is a sludge engineering and design for a sludge treatment facility, and there's some other projects in there as well. But the major amount of that is going to engineering and design for the sludge treatment facility. Right now, we're paying Henrico County to accept and treat our sludge, and as our system grows, we're paying them more and more each year. And I think we're at the point where it doesn't make sense to continue to utilize Henrico, and it's going to be just as effective for us to treat our own sludge. Also have a list of public utility projects, and in fact, that's where that $3 million is coming from, the increase from FY21 to FY22. As I mentioned, the top project is this solid stabilization and dewatering. That is the sludge treatment. All right, just a little bit about the schedule. Per state code, you have to wait at least 10 days before adopting the budget after you conduct a public hearing. Therefore, we cannot take action on the budget tonight, but we have scheduled that for our May work session on May 26th, which is a 9 o'clock meeting for the public. I believe that covers my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I guess I just have a question. Does anybody have any other issues with the 5-cent decrease in the ad valorem as opposed to the 2-cent, which we did last year? I just want to show a little more effort on our part to eliminate that and working in that direction to eliminate that ad valorem tax for the residents and the landowners that own property in Bottoms Bridge that's in that district. That's what I would like to see is that we can. And Larry had said in the past that he thought we could do it this year as well. So I would like to see it go to 5 cents instead of 2.
Because, Mr. Hadley, we're not going to, like I said, we're not going to make it any stricter, so before we adopt it, if we first propose. I'm fine with that. I mean, what does a penny equate to?
Have to turn to Larry.
Sorry.
I know that right now with the 13 cents, we're collecting roughly 300,000 in the ad valorem.
So it's less than 30,000.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was around 22 to 24.
So we have,
It's 2509.
2509 is.
so we have that 300, I think, that presentation, that $388,000 that this board can decide what to do with it. And contingencies, correct?
That's correct.
And, Mr. Chairman, the water and sewer rate with 1% rate reduction, I thought we were gonna try to look into possibly a 2%. Is that, am I wrong?
I thought so too.
I think what he gets in his district, I should get it. in
You
my
should get it in your district. I understand. I understand.
As long as my district got
Let me go back and work up some numbers, and I'll talk to you in the meantime too. My only concern is big amount of capital projects that we have. I just want to make sure that, we're not putting ourselves in a hole and setting ourselves for a potential increase years out. But we'll work those numbers. I'll communicate with you, and if it works, we'll have that prepared for the work session.
If I may add to that, you just stated that for several years, they had an 8%, then it dropped to 4%.
Yeah.
So dropping another 2% is just a drop in the bucket, pretty much.
It's a drop in the bucket, but I think it's an indication that our system is finally going in the right direction.
I believe that, yes. All right, thank you.
And so, I wasn't gonna say anything, but let me just go ahead. We talk about our projects, and then we talk about our funding for our projects, and then we talk that 2% and 1%, and it's nothing, but we still got projects. So we don't believe in saving for projects. We get a penny and we spend a penny. Is that what I'm hearing? That's how we're gonna operate? Because that's not how we operate.
Well, as you can see from my recommendation, there's a healthy amount of money in the contingency line item. One of the things that we're looking at budgeting in this fiscal year, and we've talked about it, is a salary study for $100,000. Once we have the study, we're going to need some money to address the results of that. So that could be reserved to address the results of the salary study. But we're not proposing to spend everything. There is money, a very healthy amount of money in your contingency line item.
So it was $688,000.
Yes.
So we're doing a study for $100,000. We don't know how that's going to affect the salaries of the county. So we got unknown.
Mm-hmm.
We got $140 million worth of capital projects. And we got $688,000 that we said. Okay.
Well, 680, but on top of that, if the mills tax is adopted, you would have an additional 592 of revenue, annual revenue that would be set aside.
But we got $140 million in
That's a
capital
lot.
projects.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
I'm
great.
just trying to get it straight in my head. Once I have to just play with me a little while, I'm good.
Think of it.
I feel better now.
Think of it like the VDOT 6-year plan. You get
That's 60
$60,000 for $60 million worth.
Yeah, and it's not all doom and gloom, but I do think we need to start setting aside money now. Because you're gonna have some real opportunities in, I believe, 2026 and 2027, as some of your existing debt is paid off and paid down. So with the money we set aside now, and with the existing debt being paid off, I think in 5 years from now, we're gonna be in a good position if we start saving money too.
But don't you think we'd be better if we were saving $688,000 instead of $300,000? That's my only point.
Yeah, I mean.
Me too. I'm good, Mr. Hathaway. Thank you.
Not if it comes from the taxpayer.
I'm just saying, and when we talk about taxes and we're trying to decrease things, but we're trying to maintain or decrease our real estate taxes. And so, yeah, that's my goal. I mean, when we talk about helping our citizens, we want everybody to have somewhere to live, and we want them to live as comfortably as possible. And so it all sounds well, but it's a lot of things coming down the pipe, and it's not all doom and gloom, but it's not all happy days either. And so I said last year about COVID, and so it would take us 2 to 3 years to know the effect of what's going on with COVID and the effect that it would have on this nation and this county. And I'm not changing my mind on that. So that's all I have to say about it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, at our last work session, I think I brought up about, we were talking about senior citizens' personal property tax, not being considered anymore.
Well, what we, no, it is still being considered, but what we decided at our last meeting is that will go into effect the following tax year. The application cycle is actually, I believe, May 1st to get that senior.
Oh,
Right, so we've already passed this up.
okay,
But yes, we are looking.
like that.
All
Any
right.
other comments?
I'm sorry. There's one more public hearing that you're gonna have, and this will be real brief. But that's on our proposed fees. Every year, I ask our department heads to evaluate and look at the fees that they're charging for various services. And we do have a few fees that we're proposing to change. One deals with the Freon charge at our refuge sites. We're increasing that, thank you, I'm looking for it. We're increasing that from $10 to $15. That's a fee that is totally dependent on what our vendor is charging us. And we signed a new contract this year, and the cost for the removal of Freon appliances goes from $10 to $15. In our Parks and Recreation, we're proposing several fee charges to implement a separate fee if you're renting our facilities and you're not a county resident. We don't feel that you should pay or have the same access to our facilities if you're not a taxpayer here. We'll still let you rent them, but we are proposing to break out our fees and charge a separate fee. And then there's the electronic summons fee, which is a fee that's a newer fee that the state, the General Assembly has allowed us to charge. It's a $5 fee for each summons issued, and we're proposing that we charge that. That concludes my presentation.
Any board members? Any comments, we'll open up the public hearing? We'll do first one we'll do is, public hearing on proposed tax levies for fiscal year 2022. No one has signed up? Any comments? I guess we'll wait for some more information from, Mr. Hathaway on contingencies, and I think Ms. Spears and Ms. Tiller are asking something on the ad valorem and the water and sewer tax rates to get back with. All right, I'll close that public hearing. Next public hearing is food and beverage tax increase. We have 3 people signed up. I'll ask you to come up to the podium, state your name, address for the record, and have 3 minutes of comment. First on there is Mr. J.D. Benson.
Mr. Chairman, and distinguished members of the board, first, before I say anything else, I want to acknowledge and thank all of you for what it takes to put this together. It looks pretty easy just flashing it up on board, but from Larry and all the people who contributed this, it's quite an undertaking. You're in an unenviable position, some might say impossible. That's trying to balance the services that you'd like to provide to the county, top grade services, salaries, and then the poor taxpayers who usually complain about taxes. I don't see a lot of them here tonight. I don't know if everybody knows how the meal tax came about. In November of 2004, there was a referendum, a citizens referendum in New Kent. Why was there a referendum? Because it was required by law. and the citizens did pass the 4% rate tax. The current budget includes a 50% increase in meal tax. I know everybody's using the 2%, it's 2 percentage points. It's a 50% increase in meal tax. And as Rodney mentioned, there's no longer a requirement as a result of the General Assembly's action to have a referendum of the citizens. And the question is, where does the money come from? Where does it go? Right now, we're talking about where it comes from. And I don't know whether the best thing is to put it in real estate taxes, or put it in meal tax, or leave it alone and deal with expenses. But I think since we imposed this 4% tax on the citizens as a result of the referendum, I'd like to see another referendum held in November. We've got an election November 2nd. So there's now an opportunity. I have instructions right here, Mr. Chairman, on how to hold a referendum. I think we need to let the citizens decide. I think right now, if you poll people in the county, maybe even some in this room, not many know that a 50% increase in the tax is being proposed. That's my concern. And if we pass it in the budget, later they find out, oh, when did it get passed? I knew nothing about it. I've talked to several people about it. They've never heard anything about it. So in the issue of the interest of transparency and openness, I would hope that you consider having a referendum December 2nd. That would leave on the side.
November 7th.
Most of December.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure. That's what we tell the opposing party when the election is.
That's how it works.
Thank you, Mr. Dustin. Mr. Adams? Oh, Mr. Dustin, did he, his
Did I
address
tell you
is
where I live?
3902 Homestead.
Homestead Road in the next.
I just make
Sorry
that,
about that.
I'll make that for the record.
My name is David Adams. I run Adams Sports Mart at 9021 Pocahontas Trail, Providence Forge. We've been there about 65 years. I'm here to speak against the food tax increase. I was here when they passed the first one and they were allowed to either go 2% or 3% or 4%. And at that point, I went for the most they could get, 4%. But in the last year, the businesses that collect a lot of this have had a tough time, some of them. And the way the economy has been for them, any little bit increase is tough. People come in and paying it, and y'all are not gonna hear about it, but we're gonna hear about it, standing at their cash register, and say, well, what's this extra tax I pay? We're gonna have to deal with that. And with everything else that's going on in this country today, I mean, inflation, I was telling some of them during the break, you know, in Richmond right now, Exxon's terminal is out of gasoline. Price of regular gasoline. Price of gas is skyrocketing. That's just another form of a tax that the people are gonna have to pay. And we can't help it. With everything else that they're talking about, another 5 cents on the gas tax in July 1st. Who knows what the federal government may do? I mean, that's just something else. Where does it end? How many taxes do we have to keep paying? You know, there are a lot of things I know that Rodney has on his list that he'd like to get done. But there's a lot of things on my list I'd like to get done, and I can't always afford to do it. I have to find a different way. So I would like to y'all reconsider this. It's a principle of the thing. Just because you can, don't mean you have to. And it all adds up with everything else. It's 2 cents here, 5 cents there. It all adds up to the people of the community. And another thing is, y'all talk about, well, a lot of these people are passing through. But you go in Primus, you go in Patsy's, you go in Lakeside, they're local people. sure, you're getting the passersby at McDonald's and the Love's and the Burger King, but the local people you hear all the time, they're gonna pay this all the time. Those other people are gonna be gone. Now, I understand y'all's mentality on that, but it's their local people that will pay it all the time. Thank you.
Adam? Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Thomas Miller. I live at 14400 Winding Grove Lane in Lenexa, District 5. And I would like to speak in opposition to the increase in the meals tax from 4% to 6%. If this is passed in the budget, it will put New Kent County at the top rate in the state for the meals tax. There are several other counties that are looking at raising it to from 4% to 6%. I'm not even sure if all the counties are aware of it. But because you can, I don't think that you should. It used to be, as was previously stated, that a referendum was required. And where I used to live in Chesterfield County, we tied it right to the school bond referendum. And for 3 successive school bonds, we couldn't pass that meals tax. If you were to have a referendum, think about what the results might be. Do you think it would pass? I know you haven't heard a lot about it to date. It's probably not as well known among some circles, but if you did a referendum, think about, would it pass? The one industry in this country that is suffering more than any other industry is the restaurant industry. About 20% of the restaurants in this state have closed. And now they can't hire anybody. Okay? And I know there's a lot of different perspectives on what the reasoning is, whether it's the unemployment is too much, or whether they don't want to go back to work because of the risks associated with it, or they can't get child care support. But there are help wanted signs on every single restaurant in this county, including some of the fast food places. They can't get people. And now, this year, you want to give a 50% increase in the meals tax. I don't think it's right. I just don't think that is right. Not to this community, not this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Last one to sign up, so I will close public hearing. We're going to have some discussion on this. We can. What is the pleasure of the board is on this?
Mr. Chairman?
Discussion?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lawson?
I've had contact from some of my constituents expressing that, and even some that weren't my constituents in District 5, expressing that they hope that we don't pass this meals tax. But that would be a small number compared to the number of people that have emailed me and called me asking me to support the increases in pay for our sheriffs, fire and rescue, and other members of our staff. And although we're planning on setting this money aside, it's still got to come from somewhere. And you know, the money that was set aside for the schools, for the school construction, is now going to be consumed by operating that school. So it's not like we just get to pretend that the money is here and we can just save those 2 cents next time. If that money's gone, that money's spent. We're either going to build a school, now we've got to operate the school. All of that is an increase. So, you know, we talk about trying to help our senior citizens and people that have a hard time struggling with the real estate tax that only comes from property owners in New Kent. So this is, even a portion of the meals tax is going to be paid by someone other than the residents. And, you know, we can inflate the number by calling it a 50% increase, and it truly is. But if you go out to dinner and your ticket is $50, your ticket is $51 now, if this goes through. I don't think anybody's gonna stop going out to dinner because your meals tax went up $1. 2% on a $50 tab is $1. So we're talking about the increase here, the money, the other tax is already there. So we're talking about a difference now of $1 on a $50 tab. I don't think anybody's gonna stiff the waiter or the waitress because the bill went up $1. So I see this as an opportunity for us to generate additional revenue, which I hope people realize we need to do, and that there's an opportunity for it to not be paid exclusively by the residents of the county. So I do support this increase. That's where I stand.
You told me I said no.
I tell you, hey, I never told you. Yeah, Mr. Sears.
Mr. Chairman, timing is everything, and you would never ask your wife what's for dinner while she's out mowing the yard. So the timing is off on trying to raise the meals tax with what the restaurants have been through in the last year. And I know that 2% is what's advertised, and it is truly a 50% increase. And I wonder how the residents would react if we told them we were going to go up on the real estate tax 50%. I think you'd probably get more about that. I'm sure you would.
I think you see more people in there today.
Yeah, there would be more people in here. Rodney would have to go and build a new admin building. That's do it overnight. And I've heard it stated that, you know, it's usually the months when we collect the most meal tax is the summer months. And that's the tourists passing through. And I'm not sure that's a real true indication, because I think that's when we all go out to eat. Because I know when it's 28 degrees outside and my wife says, what do you want to do tonight? I don't say, let's go out to eat. You know, so I think it's because everybody goes out in the summer months more than they do during the cold months. And I just don't feel like now with what the restaurants have been through, and yeah, we might can afford the extra $1, $1.50 and everything, but I really truly believe the more you have to pay in a tax on your meal, you tend to leave a lesser tip for the waitress, which affects her income and her family. And I am totally opposed to it, because this is not new to you guys. I said this back in Mr. Lockwood, March 12th, when we had our retreat, but I was against it then, and I'm against it now. Thank you.
Anybody else have any comment? I'll just be completely straightforward. I've talked to some restaurant owners, Mr. Adams is one, talked about 4 of them. 2 of them that's not going to affect their business one bit. They said it's the best year they've ever had. They've been very supportive. They thank the community very much for the support they've given the restaurants over this year. I think Newton County, again, being New Kent Strong, has gone out and supported the restaurants. I agree totally that it's been a tough year on restaurants, and a tough year on small businesses in general. I think all small businesses are having a hard time finding people. I'm not a huge proponent of tax increases, you know that. I think we should be proud of where we are, and keeping the tax rate the same is what we're proposing. I think we're the lowest. What do you say? We're the third lowest in the Richmond area. I think Richmond's meals tax is what, 7.5%. So I mean, there's some other localities that are higher than New Kent. But if we were putting this money back into the operating fund, I would be totally against it. But I feel like one of the accomplishments of this board is putting that Colonial Downs money in set aside, and I feel very proud of that, because we were able to do capital projects without putting pressure on our fixed income families, not without having to raise the tax rate. But if this is going to the operating budget, I couldn't support it. But Newton County is growing, and we have to find a way to provide services for all the constituents that we serve. So I will support this 2%. Again, I have not had besides one phone call. I've not had the first phone call about this. And I mean, I understand what you're saying about referendum is, I mean, I'm out there talking to the community. I don't know how much more we can do. I mean, we advertise it, we put it out there. So, I mean, we can't make people, I mean, we're doing all we can do. We just can't go out there and put something in everybody's mailbox. My feeling is constituents have to know what their county government, we're the ones that the constituents hold accountable. So they have some homework to do, research to be here as well. So, that's just my 2 cents on the 2%. All right, we can, I can entertain a motion on this.
Do we have a motion? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
what is the motion?
if somebody wants to give one.
Mr. Chairman, I propose that we deny the increase of the food and beverage tax from 4% to 6% for the year 2022.
Can I make a motion as well?
Yes, sir, Mr. Lawyer.
Then I would,
You have to vote on it, then you can make the motion.
okay.
I thought you could put two motions on the, Robert's rules, you put two motions on the floor and then vote on
We
the
can have
second
a
one.
substitute motion, and then we can vote whether that motion will replace the original motion.
So there can be a substitute motion.
You can do a substitute motion, yep. If that's what Mr. Lockwood, if you would.
You want to do a substitute motion, just vote on this motion first. Let's just, let's just vote on this Steers. Is there any discussion on this Steers motion?
No, sir.
If none, poll the members.
Mr. Lockwood,
No.
Mr. Tiller,
Aye.
Ms. Page? No. Mr. Steers?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
No.
Happy evening.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion and propose that we adopt the increase in food and beverage tax from 4% to 6%.
Thank you, Ms. Lockwood. Any discussion?
I'll ask a stupid question if I may.
Mhm.
Didn't pass on him. Is it necessary to have the other motion?
Mine was to deny.
Yes, yes, deny.
Accept.
Okay. all right. Yeah, I got that. Because it is not, okay. never mind.
Ms. Watkins, poll the members.
Mr. Tiller,
No.
Ms.
What?
Page?
Wait a minute.
We're
Would
voting,
you repeat your motion again, please?
we are voting to approve the increase. I propose, my motion is that we increase the food and beverage tax from 4% to 6%.
Thank you.
Sir.
I stand with my no.
Start at the beginning. Mr. Tiller,
No.
Ms. Page? Mr. Steers?
Nay.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Next public hearing, proposed amendments to Appendix A, fees in Newton County, courts, parks, recreation, and refuge and recycling. No one signed up? Close the public hearing. Next public hearing, Newton County budget proposed FY 22 budget. Anyone signed up? One person signed up, Dr. Reverend Hathaway. Right.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Reverend Milton Hathaway, I live at 9001 Thompson Mill Road. And I'm here as the interim president of the Bill for Action Committee for the NAACP. And we're in support of the budget, and I wanted you to know we've gone through it thoroughly. I think it's a very progressive budget. that will pay long-term dividends for us. We're very excited about it. I know it's difficult to be excited about an $80 billion budget, but it does some things that I think will pay dividends for the county. And so we're very excited about that. Second thing I want to do in light of the budget is to say thank you. These 14 months have been really challenging financially for families, and I know for the county. And there have been so many little things that you all have done that citizens have said to me as a pastor and to other pastors. And so I want to say thank you for just the little things you did to help us get through what has been the most difficult 14 months. I'm excited about the budget for a couple of reasons. One is the salary competitive study. We have been pushing for something like this for the longest time. We lose quality people who, and they used to say, well, where is New Kent? Now they say we can't afford to live in New Kent. And so doing this competitive study is going to pay long-term dividends for us. Fiber optics. I am absolutely excited as a pastor for that. We're streaming and we're not going to stop streaming, but everybody's using the internet now. And so we have local areas in our county that just don't have access to it. So the possibility of getting that is really great. The Envision You Can. I absolutely love it. I think it's just been a quality report. Two things I want to challenge you to do in terms of the budget is housing affordability is really a concern. We've got to make sure that we're providing enough options because the average cost of the house in New Kent is constantly going up. And so housing affordability is something that we're really concerned about in future budgets. The second thing I want to challenge you with is I hear this from pastors across the board, is we've got to have some way to support assisted living for our seniors. When our seniors get to the point where they can no longer live independently, many of them, the only option available is to move out of the county. That's probably the worst option. And I know you cannot do that, but I just want you to support assisted living in our community so we can keep our seniors in our communities. Again, I appreciate what you've done. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
Thank you. Next public hearing is proposed amendments to Appendix A, fees of New Kent County Code, water, sewer rates. No one signed up. I'll close that public hearing. Our last public hearing of the night. The internet works. Is New Kent County Public Utilities Budget proposed FY 2022. New Kent County Public Utilities Budget. Anyone signed up? No one signed up. I'll close public hearing for the night. The board members have any other comments tonight?
I do have this comment, just to thank all that worked on this budget. I know we're not voting on the budget tonight. However, I think that no one knows the number of hours and conversations and meetings that it takes place, and we have staff that work diligently on this, and they do that and do the other tasks and handle their responsibilities and their duties throughout the day. And with the many phone calls, meetings, and emails and conversations, I now understand after 6 years why we go from one budget to another. So as soon as this one is adopted, we'll be working on the next budget. And so, to that being said, sometimes it's a little disheartening when you see one sheet and then when it's time to vote, it's a whole nother different set of numbers. And I can tell you, I am about being a good steward of taxpayers' dollars. And so, and I do, and not only the dollars, but the time that we spend or the time that is spent in the preparation of the budget. So for that, I commend our staff that works diligently, and Mr. Clark, who loves numbers, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And especially, and all the finance department and the rest that sit on the budget request.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Just a follow-up from our last meeting, if anybody's listening at home, I know we had a presentation from River Street about broadband, and I think, along with myself and a few other board members, the presentation was a little, I was pretty much frustrated after that. So I asked Mr. Hathaway, and I think some other board members as well, to reach out to River Street to get us more on track. I think that I spoke with Mr. Hathaway, we had a meeting this morning, and he felt a lot more comfortable with what they had, and we're gonna try to put kind of a retreat together the 1st of June with River Street to see exactly where we are to get this project moving forward, because like what Reverend Hathaway talked about, to me, this is the number one concern that our constituents and the community has. We have to get some broadband. But I don't know if you'd like to give a little kind of update on that, a little bit more, or kind of.
Because that wasn't on the CIP list.
Well, it's not on the CIP list because it's my hope that this is a project that we can begin in this current fiscal year, where that CIP list of the out years. You know, as was said, broadband is a priority, and that's something we want to start rolling on. I've had a couple conversations with River Street. I wasn't pleased with the presentation that was made. And I just think they could have done a better job explaining the true cost. And part of that might have been me too. I saw $49 million on the screen.
You know I did.
But the total cost for the county, and we'll get into more detail, the county's responsibility would be $25 million.
That's with no grants.
And that's with no grants. And definitely there's some grant opportunities coming up starting next month, actually, with VADI, that we want to be in a position to apply for. But the total cost, the county's portion, is not $49 million. It is 25. What they did, which is different than other presentations that I've seen with other companies, is they gave the total cost, and they included their costs in that too. The county's responsibility with that 25 is basically building the backbone and the middle mile. River Street is actually picking up the last mile. So they're picking up where we are going to run fiber optic down every county road. They're picking up the cost to extend from the county road to the house, to connect to the house. That is embedded in that $49 million. River Street is a company that you won't find a lot of companies will do. Most cable companies, they'll go 300 feet off the road, and after that, you're on your own. And that cost is going to be huge. River Street, they've agreed to go 1,400 feet off the road, which is going to pick up a good number of homes. And one thing that I want to talk about in more detail too is, because the money we've set aside actually is going to be more than that $25 million that we're going to contribute. One of the things I'd like for us to consider is setting aside a grant fund, using that Colonial Dam set aside, where for those homes that are beyond 1,400 square feet, we can maybe issue a grant and match that additional cost, maybe 50-50. We can develop our own guidelines for that project. So I just wanted to make it clear that the total bill from the county's perspective and total cost of the county is $25 million, and that's with no grants funded. And we do anticipate going after many grants, and there's more grant opportunities out there that's coming available in the near future.
And I've asked Mr. Hathaway just to set a special meeting, no work session, and just completely leave the vote to River Street and get updated on what's going on. If everybody's okay with that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Does anybody else have any comments?
I just would like to say that, going through the budget process and everything, and even this evening, we don't always agree on the way that things need to get done, but we do agree that things need to get done. And I do appreciate the fact that everybody is civil, kind, and courteous when they're talking about these things, because at the end of the day, we might disagree on some of these points, but we all have to live together. And I do appreciate the citizens of New Kent being thoughtful and reaching out to us, and also just the demeanor that they communicate with us. So thank you very much for that.
All right, if there's no other comments from the board, the next regular scheduled meeting of the Board of Supervisors will be held at 6 p.m. on Monday, June 14, 2021. And the next work session will be held at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, May 26, 2021, both back in the boardroom of the New Kent County Administration Building. Was that? Motion to adjourn? Ms. Larkin, call the member.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Habermill?
Aye. Adjourn.
Forget.